will be sharing my screen. So I'm sharing my screen from here. As you can see, we have gone through the labs for, broken access control, cryptographic failure, injection, insecure design, and security misconfiguration. Now we'll go into the lab of vulnerable and outdated components. If you have been following my channel, you'd understand what vulnerable and outdated components really means. So it means that you, maybe on your application, you have a part of it or all of it that have been outdated, that you have an update version, but you have not really updated the application or whatever it is, and it's now vulnerable. So for example, a company did not update their WordPress for a few years, and when you look at using a tool like WordPress Scan, you will see that their version is 4.6. and it reviews, and quick research would review that 4.6 is vulnerable to unauthenticated RCE, remote code execution exploits. So there is a database that you can use to check these exploits. I'll be showing that database when we get into the lab, but this is just an example to show you that maybe a company is using a particular application that they've not updated for a long period of time, and then this application is now vulnerable, which would make it prone to attack, from attackers. So we have read this part. Now let's go into what the exploit looks like. As you can see from the screen that we're trying to find an exploit. This is the name of the application, this is the version, this is software, this is the version. And so we're trying to look for whether this is vulnerable. So the first thing we want to do is to start our machine. Once we start our machine, I'll be able to start the attack box. And then I would quickly go back to the exploit. So now we know, what we're looking for. In some cases, we'll just be provided with the software and the version, or we run some command to see the version. As you can see in the previous labs, we did look for a version somewhere using cat/etc/os-release to see the version. So in this case, we already have the software, we already have the version. So we'll be checking this exploit database to see if there's something on it. So, and remember that we are in this lesson and in this exploit, we are more focused on unauthenticated remote code execution and something around remote code execution. So in this case also, we are looking for remote code execution. Like you can see in the image, I'd like to show this exploit first before we then go into the lab that we are supposed to solve. So I'll be showing you how this exploit looks like. I'm just waiting for this machine to be up. And so from this exploit on this database, we can already download the Python document that contains the exploit, would have it in. Once we have it in and we correct some errors on it, we'll just run this command. And once we run the command, we'll be able to see that now, the exploit is visible, right? And then we will use this same way to actually open up the exploit for our own lab also. But enough of talking, and let's go to exploits database. So I'm just copying the link, and then I'm using Firefox rather. Paste the link in, and we'll see how it looks like. So this is how the database looks like. Then we can use the name of the software to search. So sometimes when you are doing research about it to see whether an application is vulnerable, you could also check something like this for educational purpose only. You could also check something like this just to see if there's something on exploit database. So because this is the one we are interested in, and this is the exploit itself. We can download it from here. So let's say we download the exploit. We'll see it downloaded. Now it's downloaded. It's a Python file, and we can now go into the terminal to run that command. So because it's a Python file, we can use Python, to run the command on that file. You can see the name of the file is 47837.py. So if we run it, it will come back with an error that something is wrong, that we need to, comment out. Like you can see, something is not defined, so we need to comment it out. From their explanation here, you see this line needs to be commented. So because the line needs to be commented, we can just nano and go to the file again. Like I mentioned that you can use nano as an editor in previous lesson. So you can nano and go into the file. As you can see, this is what they are referring to, the CVE 2019. So you just need to scroll there and comment it out. And what does it mean to comment it out? Just add an hash and you've commented it out. Now you need to save it. So Control O, OK, and Control Exit, then you're back. So it's saved correctly now. And if you run it as Python, and then add your host, as you can see from the screen, your local host is what you need to add in this case. Sorry. I did it even without adding the local host, to be honest. So, and here we go. So we have the result. Yeah, we have the result. And so because we have been able to achieve it with this example, we'll then, click complete because we don't need anything. Now we'll go into our lab. So in the lab, they ask us to navigate to this page, and I will open the. Now it's very simple this way I'm explaining it, but is normally added than this when you don't know what you're looking for. Here we have an idea. We know that this application is vulnerable. We already know that it's a vulnerable application. Normally you should be testing to see if it's vulnerable, but in this case you already have an idea that it's vulnerable. Now we need to check this on exploit database in relation to anything that has remote code execution. Remember, this is our focus mainly. This is our focus. So I would be using different keyword. You can use something like online bookstore. And I think when I decided to use online bookstore, I didn't see anything related. So I decided to space out, bookstore, and then checking through to see if I can see anything related to remote code execution. This is where it is. From this point, this tick actually show that they verified this exploit. This times shows that it's yet to be verified. So we are good with this one because it's also verified. Even if it's not verified, I think a lot of people are working on the database. So we download this also as a file. Now again, like we did initially, we'll go to our terminal. We already know the name of the file, so we go to our terminal and we input the name of the file. In case you don't know the name of the file, that's fine. You can always ls and try to see the name of the file. I showed you what ls means. So as you can see, we have two files. The first one was the one we initially used for the exploit. Now the second one is the one we just downloaded. So if you use the same command, let's see what this has to be. Okay, so we need to put the URL of the website. Remember, I was trying to add the host at some point, but we didn't need it. Now we need to actually put this URL. I'll copy it. We need to actually add it to be able to access that exploit. So now we have it, and it's asking whether we want to launch the shell. We say yes. Now we have an error, and because this room is actually not a very recent room, So, I was having this error and trying to see, how to get by. But then I discovered that we don't actually have to use just Python. Python 3 would work better actually. So I added 3 to this, and then it's asking for yes or no. Of course, it's yes. And then the shell is launched. So with this remote code execution means that you can just input code that would remotely execute itself. So in this case, they said we should look for the content of this file. This is a file that we can access through this shell. So they said we should look for the content. Remember, I told you what cats can do. Cats can display things. Remember that I mentioned that cats can display things, Nano can edit things. So with cats, I can easily just go into that directory and see what is inside. And as you can see, I already have my flag. It's that simple. If it's a whole bunch of lot of things, then maybe you can also search through to see where your flag is. And as simple as that, we already have our flag. So what is Nmap? It's just a short form for network mapper. It is a very powerful tool. It's used for network discovery. It's used for security auditing. It allow devices on the network to be identified. It also helps you to see the ports that are open, to discover open ports, and also to see the services that are running on those ports. So it's usually used by people in network cybersecurity professionals like ourselves. And so what are the key features? It helps to discover the host, that's the device on the network. It helps to scan the ports to see which ports are open on devices. It helps to see the services that are running on the open ports and what their versions are. It depends on the command that you're using the Nmap with. It can also be used for OS detection and so on and so forth. And some of the basic command of Nmap we have is just, using ordinary Nmap, the target, like the IP where you're targeting. You can use it to do basic scan. You can ping scan, which identify which hosts are online using -SN and so on, as you can see from the screen. Basically, these are like the basic things, and these are the things also that this specialist coming after me will be explaining using Nmap command with Anton and all the rest. So you would hear his voice immediately after mine. So stay tuned.
And today we'll be looking at Nmap using web application. And please, this video is actually for educational purposes only. Scanning an unauthorized network or a web application without the permission of the individual or organization, right, is actually illegal. So we'll be using a vulnerable website to actually carry out this procedure, and in the process of this video I will show you how to connect using telnet, and I'll also show you various things you can do using Wireshark for normal packet analysis. Then as we dive on, you will see various things I'll be explaining and what each command in Nmap does as we scan our target. Right. So first of all, we open Wireshark so that it's turned on and we can actually carry out those scans, right, and get better explanation. So we do sudo Wireshark, right? Sudo Wireshark, uh, and we input our password. So opening Wireshark is to actually get the network packet that is being transmitted at the moment from this our particular network. So join me as we scan testphp.von.web. So we turn on Wireshark so that it can capture packets, right? And then first of all, we want to know whether our host is up. So we'll run an Nmap scan, right? Nmap -sn testphp vulnerabilities.vulnweb.com. So by scanning, we actually know that, okay, it says our host is up. So another scan we can actually run is the scene scan, right? So we can, that's kind of stealthy. It's a stealthy kind of scan. So you run nmap dash sc test php dot vulnweb.com. So while it's actually scanning, right, Nmap is an active reconnaissance tool, right? Which means, what does an active reconnaissance tool do? An active reconnaissance tool is a tool that sends target probe to or probes to that targeted network or system, right? So as it scans the system, it's sending probes, right? Traffic, and if there is a security implementation of um if there is a security implementation like IDS, IPS, and all other security measures put in place, yes, it will also obviously block it, like firewall now. So in order to check for web application firewall within a particular system, you can use WAF, right? WA, then WAF, WAF, but it is in zero, right? So 00F, that's WAF. So you use it to scan for web application firewall and know what particular firewall that particular application or service is using at the moment. It could be Cloudflare, it could be Safety Net firewall, or any other firewall that is actually put in place. So this is it, and as you can see, we have one open service, which is HTTP, and you can see it. So now, another thing we can actually do while testing or scanning a network is to know what particular server version that particular network or system or web application is running on. And to do that, you run nmap sv, then test php dot vulnweb.com, right? So this will actually show the kind of version or whatever version that particular application is using at the moment, right? And as you can see, it's actually capturing a lot of TCP packets of synchronity, right? Which means that we're actually sending probes to the network, right? But if you notice, there are not really any much acknowledgement here. But before the end of this video, I'll explain as we dive on. So let's dive into the last scan we made, and okay, it's still in process. So we'll wait for a particular time and a while for it to actually scan the network thoroughly and know what is in that particular network.
Metasploit is an open source penetration testing framework. It is developed to help security professionals to identify, to exploit, and validate vulnerability in system and network. You can use it on different platforms: Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. You can use it on your Kali too, because of course it's Linux. So what are the features that makes Metasploit very, very important? It helps to exploit database. It has like over 100K real-time exploit. It's customized payload, which is very important, and the specialist that will be taking this part would show you how to create a payload. It works on different platforms. I'd mentioned that before. It can also integrate with other tools like Nmap, the one we did last week, Bob Suite, and the rest. And it can also provide you with workspace, so you can do various projects simultaneously. So this is one of the very key feature of Metasploit.
In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to gain access to your victim's machine using Metasploit. First of all, we are going to use MS Venom to actually create the payload in which we are going to use to gain access into our victim's machine. Right. So you can see in this command that we have a space left for our Kali IP, and to get the Kali IP, you need to use ifconfig to generate the particular IP that we need for the attacker's machine. So you are filling the blank space, which is ifconfig. You put the IP address from our attacker's machine, right? So, and then after putting that, we run the command. So wait for some while the MS Venom is actually loading and creating our payload at the moment. So after that, the payload has loaded, we move to the next step, which is actually running MF console, right? That's MFF console. That's the Metasploit framework, right? And we'll wait for it to actually boot up, right? So after it's done booting, then we move to the next step. So after this, we'll actually run use exploit multi slash handler, right, as our next command in this video. So we'll use this command to actually state our exploit procedures. So after you put this command in MFF console, you actually use your enter button. So the next step we are going to take is that we are going to set our exploit to Windows, right? And then we click enter. So when we do that, we are actually setting the exploit in which Metasploit would actually use to actually carry out the reverse connection in the system. So another step we are going to actually do is to list all options, right? To know whether all settings and configuration are actually in place, right? So if there's if we don't have our local host IP address in place, then we'll actually include that. Yes, we'll actually include that in this so that we can actually get we can actually listen to our target system on our Kali machine. So you use next step to use is that you use set localhost to the attacker's IP address. That is the Kali IP address, like I said from the beginning. So you use this set lhost to this particular IP address, then list all options, right? So if you list all options, you see that this particular IP address has been included in our command, right? It has been included in our configuration, right? So that's what it does when we set lhost to the specific IP address. Yes, and you can see that the IP address has been included in our configurations and settings. So the next step we are going to take is that we are going to enter exploit, right, and create a listener, right, so that we can get the communication between our Windows machine and our Kali machine. So the listening session has already started, right? So after this, we'll actually open our shell, right, and drag it or move it to our Windows system so that we can execute it from there. So, and I'll be taking you through the process of how to actually do this, right? So we'll carry the shell that was created by MFS console, MS Venom, right, to move to our Windows machine so that we can actually carry out the exploit attack and gain reverse connection to our attacker's machine, which is our Kali at the moment. So we are actually going to drag the shell directly to our Windows machine, right? So we'll drag the shell to our Windows machine and position it where we can see. So we open our Kali and cancel this. Then we are going to head back to our Windows machine to actually start the process, right? So once we click on the shell, right, it's going to execute on our Windows, on our attacker's machine, which is our Kali, right? And it will create a session, a Metasploit session, right? So we wait for it to load up. So a Metasploit session has been created from our victim's machine to Kali, right? So I'm quite stuck here and I'll be using dash help to get commands that are in Windows, right? And run my processes because I'm not really familiar with Windows that much. So we run shell and we've created a session, right? And if you run who am I, you see that I'm currently in my system, right, which is Dell, right? So I'm currently in my system, which is Dell. And you can other run several processes, right, like system info, right? You can run the system info to see what system information is, and you can also use various commands like ps to see various processes that are running on the system. So thank you for watching this video and we'll see you on the next one.